Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State, a Penn State football show presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. I'm Tom Hannafin. He's Justin King. This week, number 2 Penn State sitting at 3-0, finishing its non-conference schedule, is enjoying its first bye week of the season. Week 4, Penn State football is off and looking ahead to clashing with potentially still number 6 Oregon by September 27th at home at night in a whiteout. That's on September 27th. So Penn State right now taking the time to regroup, settle down after the non-conference schedule, after the outing against Villanova. Yours truly was very hard on Penn State football, but the standard, as Penn State always likes to say. So Justin, kind of wrapping up from what we saw this past weekend and then what we saw in the non-conference schedule, what are your thoughts? How are you feeling right now about Penn State overall?
Well, I mean, to look at it for what it is, I mean, on the curve, it says they've been rotating players, working through depth, trying to get things on film. So I don't think we've seen them at full power, but the outcomes are 3-0, and there's been a wide margin in each of those games. How will they perform based on the competition moving forward? Yet to be seen. But there's some things that still need to be cleaned up. But with all in all, with working on the development pieces, getting the rotation right and the depth and all those things that you need to go deeper into this college season that we're in now with this college football playoffs, to come out 3-0 with the wide margin that they have is something to hang your hat on. Clean it up what you need to clean up. Then you have a different approach when you play Oregon at the whiteout. So I think that game will be a big evaluation tool for how we can see the rest of the season unfolding.
The last time we saw updated odds surrounding this game, Penn State had an advantage of 4.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. That is probably going to change in the next few weeks and in the coming days. So we encourage you to stay tuned to FanDuel to see how Penn State is faring in the lead up to what will be the most significant whiteout game in 6 years, legitimately against Penn State's best home opponent. So this is far and away Penn State's best home game. And then you have to look to the game against Indiana coming up on November 8th at home at Beaver Stadium. James Franklin has spoken about it post-game after the Villanova game, saying kind of this is a lighter week. You've got practices Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the players have the weekend off, opportunity for coaches to do recruiting. In your experience as a player and then also once upon a time as a member of the recruiting staff for Penn State football, how do they process these types of weeks, considering you're finishing the non-conference, it's early in September, early in the season, and you have a huge opponent coming up after the bye?
It's a week to get ahead, man. You got to get on the road, recruit, make sure you're going out to go see your big targets throughout the season, making sure that they feel seen. I mean, I think James and Coach Smith were in Pittsburgh yesterday, flying around in the chopper. But from internally, you just got to do a little bit of self-evaluation. Again, making sure what was our depth chart look like moving forward, what type of things work that we put on film, which things they cleaned up. And then you're just going into a real backyard brawl when you think about going against Oregon in this next week. So it's really a time to catch up and get healthy. I mean, all the way around. So I mean, it's a good time to have this bye week. I mean, at the beginning of the season, and you're still pretty much at full health. But that's how you approach this first bye week. So I think they have another one coming up as well.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the schedule here just to kind of get an idea. I'm trying to recall when the next one is. So you've got October 4th at UCLA, and then you're hosting Northwestern on October 11th, and you're at Iowa on October 18th. You get a bye after the Iowa game, a road game, and before the Ohio State game on November 1st, also a road game. So you get a bye right there. And these are really timely, and it's something we talked about during the offseason. Getting a bye week before Oregon and before Ohio State, the biggest games on your schedule, it's really a gift. At the same time, James Franklin doesn't have a tremendous record after bye weeks. It's about 500, so there's no real discernible data to say, oh, the bye week really helps this team, really hurts this team. It's about even. So this is very much just got to wait and see on this. Oregon is in action this weekend. They'll be hosting Oregon State, the rivalry formerly known as the Civil War. According to FanDuel, Oregon's favored by 35.5 in that game. From what you've seen of the Oregon Ducks, what impresses you on both sides of the ball?
I mean, I think in the speed in which they play, and I'm always like a speed guy, but when you have a team full of talented guys that play fast and violent, it's not a scary scene, but it's a scene that you have to deal with. And I think that's what they do from a physical presence and also having the athletes to back it up. So it's not just like a bunch of like finesse speed guys running around. Like they're a pretty tough nosed group that plays physical, fast, and yeah, pretty well rounded football team.
There have been a lot of similarities pointed out by a variety of media experts, film analysts, all those sorts of things in terms of looking at what Penn State dealt with in regard to Villanova's defense and comparing it to what they will see with Oregon's defense. Now, let's be very clear. There is a huge talent gap between the number 6 team in the country, Oregon, and FCS opponent Villanova. The similarities come in their tendencies and their defensive performance, their defensive alignments, and mostly the fact that Villanova presented something for Penn State that was obviously a challenge for the offense. And I was the first one to point all those things out in our recap episode against Villanova, which, by the way, become a member of our YouTube channel. You can watch all of our past episodes and upcoming episodes ad-free, commercial-free. Follow the link in the description of this podcast for just 99 cents a month. You get all of our past and upcoming shows commercial-free. So in the rebound from the Villanova game, it was taking a look at what the Wildcats did defensively, and it was just creating odd fronts. And from your experience playing on the defensive side of the ball, but obviously the player and game evaluation part of your experience, Justin, with LIG Sports Group, it's a situation where Oregon and Villanova present similar things in that they may show you, for instance, 3 down linemen, 4 linebacker-esque, safeties, linebackers, whatever, call it 7 in the box, something like that. And then after the snap, they can switch that to potentially 2 and dropping 5, or that's a situation where we saw a lot for Penn State against Villanova, rushing 3 and dropping 8, and then forcing Drew Allen in the passing game to have to contend with more bodies than there were receivers by a landslide. So it's going to be similar but different. It's going to be exponentially faster, bigger, stronger, all those sorts of things. But from your experience, what are the challenges that those odd fronts masking those personnel in the front of the formation, especially in the box? How do you handle those from an offensive standpoint? What's that execution like from a defensive standpoint?
It always comes down to having a plan, right? Because I mean, when you have those different off fronts, the whole point is to confuse the offense, whether it's the quarterback or the center, key in the mic and how they're setting the whole offense, whether it's like off of the Mike linebacker or where the running back is keyed from a defensive line standpoint or picking up different types of blitzes. So when you get the offense thinking and second guessing about just the basic level of identifying individuals that they need to block, it brings another level of thinking and communication to the offensive side. So that's the initial purpose. But I mean, as long as they have a solid plan and understand the different contingencies of what they may see and a plan to get out of there, it's going to be a cat and mouse game. Like you said, they can probably show a lot of different things than Villanova can based on the personnel increase that they have from a talent standpoint, because they can show different things with their talent being able to cover different holes on the field because they're just better athletes all around.
Of course. And I think that's something that like our friends Landon Tengwall and Thomas Frankar from Blue White Illustrated have pointed out were some situations that Penn State dealt with against Villanova, that it's not saying Oregon is going to do the exact same things, but there are elements of what Oregon tries to do in terms of masking coverages, masking where the pressure is coming from, that Penn State will see similar things based on what they dealt with against Villanova. So in a lot of ways, that was a very good opportunity for the offense to have. Struggling, we talked about it, but still, hopefully that experience and the time with the bye week to really prepare even more for Oregon will be in Penn State's favor. Another thing that's been pointed out by a variety of different people is the evolution of Chaz Coleman before our very eyes. To see a true freshman who, it's fascinating to me, Justin, watching him play, his handwork is so good for someone who literally started playing defensive end. I think it was within the last year, I believe as a senior in high school, switched from quarterback to defensive end, which is a massive change in what your responsibilities are as a football player. His handwork is outstanding. So credit to Deion Barnes and whatever high school he went to. It escapes me. But seeing what he is so early, and then also some of our friends in the Penn State media landscape have pointed out that, hey, like they're designing some plays for him defensively at this point in time. And you saw them more in the back end of the 3 non-conference games, or at least against FIU and against Villanova. There were more of them the first game out the chute, not necessarily against Nevada. But Chaz Coleman is intriguing to me because like he hasn't even filled out yet. He's long, he's bendy, great work with his hands, violent in all the right ways, very athletic. What do you see from the way they've utilized Chaz Coleman, and where do you project him to be by the end of at least this regular season?
Well, it's only the first 3 weeks, but I think it's been clear that he's an X factor, and in terms of pass rush and ability, and just as an overall athlete, he has length and, like you said, his bendability and just level of twitch, and like you and from being able to stack on some base level hand moves and being able to do all those different things. Granted, the first 3 weeks, these tackles that he's gone against aren't going to be of the caliber that we'll see later into the Big Ten, but he's been able to make that jump pretty easy from high school to college, which is hard to do for a defensive lineman that's playing against, grown men playing tackle. So like, again, that's yet to be seen against top tier tackles moving forward. But his start to his freshman season, I mean, it's very impressive and admirable. And so like to think that he would be anything less than a freshman All-American by the end of the season is, saying the least. But I think that's what we're kind of looking for from him. I mean, I think he's a special talent as long as he continues to develop.
State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Also, official State of State merchandise is available now. Support the show and grab State of State t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today.
Defensive side of the ball has been the most impressive unit thus far for Penn State football. It's been really incredible to watch what Jim Knowles has done. We knew there was talent here. There were certainly question marks in terms of depth at defensive tackle, depth at defensive end, to the points we were just saying. Chaz Coleman has answered some of those questions. Zariah Fisher has certainly been a bright spot, granted in non-conference competition, but getting to see him healthy, and he dealt with some bumps and bruises in camp, so missed the Nevada game, then being able to play at a high level against FIU and Villanova. He's showing a lot of burst. Denai Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, all those guys are as advertised. Alonzo Ford has played very well. A lot of depth at defensive tackle that we got to see during those few weeks. Linebacker really shined in the game against Villanova. Guys like Tony Rojas and Amari Campbell, the transfer from UNC, those two were all over the field in that game. And it was a significant question in the offseason, Justin. Jim Knowles was on the record saying, I only trust 3 linebackers right now in Campbell, Rojas, and DeLuca. And we did get to see some more guys, and you were able to point out Alex Tash was somebody that you pointed out after the Villanova game of like, oh, hey, there's something here. So I don't know if that bandwidth necessarily has changed for Jim Knowles in terms of who he trusts, but you saw some really strong performances from Rojas and Campbell. Where are your potential concerns or your potential excitement regarding what the defense has presented thus far?
I guess if there's any concern, it's just the depth against higher level talent. I mean, just again, I think the first 3 games, we have to keep the evaluation in its bucket in the sense of who the competition was. But they played at a high level, played fast, and played physical. And just historically, this defense has played championship level type of ball. So moving forward, I wouldn't expect anything less than. I'd like to see continue the increase in turnovers moving forward, and I think that's what we will continue to see. And I think we'll also see some more things from Jim Knowles in terms of blitzing and different packages with these next upcoming opponents as well.
As of right now, according to our friends at FanDuel, Penn State has the second best odds to win the national championship, only second to Ohio State, currently the number one team in the country. Ohio State, I believe, will be in action this weekend. I'll have to take a look at who they're playing. But the one thing that is critical for this week and heading into next week is how does the offense, quote unquote, get right? In that, yeah, you're putting up a lot of points against non-conference opponents. You're putting up points in garbage time in these games in the second half, fourth quarter, but you're also seeing some things really be worked out, more emphasis on the deep ball, that work getting done by Drew Aller in the passing game, not necessarily to tremendous results. Obviously, I raised my concerns after the Villanova game, but the passing game still shows promise. The running game has been outstanding. I believe Katron Allen is averaging over 8 yards per carry and has really separated himself. And something I was saying last year, Justin, is that it looked to me last year that Katron Allen had separated himself from Nick Singleton in terms of overall ability. I think there's the pop and the flash from Nick Singleton, his explosivity, that ceiling. But Katron Allen has been just consistently getting better. And now the influence of Stan Drayton does seem to have him separating himself. So what's your evaluation of the running game thus far? That's considering the offensive line play as well as the running backs.
I think it's a good problem to have when you're trying to share the load of the share of carries between two different types of backs that present compatible, but yet different things, right? I mean, like you said, Nick Singleton is a home run hitter and more of a dashing type runner. And you pair that up with Katron, who's kind of added that home run ability to his game, who's a great 0-5 runner, really shifty in between spaces, a tough tackle, and just in terms of contact balance and all those nice things. You have a beautiful run game in that standpoint. I think they've been effective in these first 3 games. I don't think anything has been super dominant, even though Katron's had his longest run of his career. I think that's the one thing that's kind of changed from that standpoint. But again, keeping the talent level that we've been competing against in his box, I think the run game has been solid, like to say the least, solid, and shows for good promise to be still a strong indicator or anchor for this offense.
And it comes back to things we've been talking about for a while: run the ball effectively, play good defense, stay healthy. That's the formula for success in this extended playoff. That's what we saw last season from a variety of different teams, Penn State included. So if Penn State is in a situation where this might not be an offense that's going to score 35 points per game on Big Ten competition, elite competition, so you feel very confident about what your defense is going to be able to do, creating turnovers to give more opportunities to the offense, less to the opposing team. You run the ball, you control the clock, you control the field advantage, all those sorts of things. It all plays in Penn State's favor. Last thing I want to talk on, the defensive backs. Obviously, your focus, your stepfather, Terry Smith, and obviously Lockdown U, your beloved Lockdown U. We've seen a lot of different guys rotating in the secondary, and you saw a lot of guys starting opposite Zakee Wheatley at safety. King Mack, also Davian Collins, Antoine Belgrave-Shorter, Kenny Wosley Jr., all these guys getting involved and getting significant reps to the point that it's looking at safety and you're kind of like, I really don't know who that solidified starter is at safety opposite Zakee Wheatley, but that's not a bad thing at this point because everybody's put something on tape that's been encouraging. So what have you seen from that position and the defensive backs as a whole?
Given, again, the competition, they've been playing good football. I mean, they've been playing fast, especially a more of a straight up type of defense. I mean, King Mack, I think, showing some stuff. Across the board, they just been playing good football. I mean, last week, Elliott had a nice interception. Elliott Washington had a nice interception. And, they really haven't given up really too many passes or explosive plays. And I'm waiting for the stress test coming up here against Oregon. So until then, kudos, and I'll give an A- to that back end group.
Also, Jameer Joseph with the pick 6.
Jameer Joseph,
cornerback, getting to see, again, you're getting to see a lot of people. AJ Harris, I don't think I've heard his name mentioned once. And usually when it comes to defensive backs, Justin, that means either nobody's throwing his way or nobody's catching anything his way. What have you seen from Ford?
I mean, I don't think there's enough time to get the ball out to the
Fair.
perimeter that way. I mean, again, we talk about the competition. The guy's been having things bottled up pretty nicely.
I do have to correct myself from earlier. Ohio State also has a bye this weekend. The number one team in the country gets to rest up because the same day Penn State will be hosting Oregon, Ohio State will be visiting Washington. That's September 27th. Washington with Damon Williams creates an interesting challenge on the road, I think, for any team. So I'm not quite jumping to the conclusion that Ohio State could be on upset alert there, but Washington is not going to be a team that rolls over for the Buckeyes. That's going to be an exciting game in Seattle, so I'll definitely be checking that out. But hop in our comments section on YouTube. Get at us on social media. Tell us how you're feeling after the 3 non-conference games have come and gone. Penn State sitting at number 2 in the country, 3-0, bye week, resting up for Oregon on September 27th. What are you excited about? What are you concerned about? Later on this week, we're going to be joined by Joe DeLeon of the Rufino and Joe Show, good friend of the show within the Believe Podcast Network, to get more the national perspective, how the country is looking at Penn State football at this point in the season. So we're going to have all that and more this week as we continue to build towards this mega matchup of Penn State versus Oregon on September 27th. We'll have plenty of coverage right here on State of State, a Penn State football show presented by FanDuel.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by FanDuel.